All right, guys, how you doing? I'm Brian. I'm Brian Lovecraft 420, aka Preacher 420. Um, that is with the three, without an e, with no e. Um, Wanted to uniquely have my name Preacher. We're going to react to this video. This video is about CNN host here limited by Tom Homan live on air drops the truth bomb. All right, so let's get to it. Remember, guys, give me a sub on YouTube. I'm also on Kick, Twitch, but this with the same name. This is also on my will be on my Preachers Reactions channel. Um, give me a follow on YouTube. It would help me out, and please like the video. Here we go. Let's jump in it.
So, for instance, we already discussed we got over 700,000 illegal aliens in this country with a criminal conviction. They're priority one. These criminal gangs like Tren de Agua and MS-13, they're a priority.
That 700,000 number, are you confident that you'll be able to deport all of those people?
That's my goal.
The U.S. border crisis has reached a boiling point, and former...
Yes, it has, and it's getting disgusting because the left are calling out Tom, saying that you're not going to be able to do this. We're going to send people. They're going to fight you when you try to take people. Some governors, some mayors have lashed out at them, at him, saying that he's racist, that he doesn't have children, but he does. It just gets it's mind numbing that these people do this.
ICE Director Tom Homan is not staying quiet. In this video, we dive into Homan's explosive interview, where he lays out a bold and controversial plan to tackle illegal immigration on the first day of a potential Trump presidency. From tackling sanctuary cities and mass deportations to exposing the harsh realities of human trafficking and missing children, Homan delivers a passionate and forthright critique of current policies. Follow along as we tackle the tough questions, raw emotions, and high stakes of securing America's borders.
Criminal aliens, we know there's over 700,000 illegal aliens with criminal convictions on the streets of this country.
That's where they're going to start, is the criminal convictions. They're not going to start with the families. I don't think many families are going to be deported, but Trump wants to take away children born in America, make the parents legal immigrants, which I have no problem with. I mean, a lot of those people that do have good jobs. Yes, it is illegal to hire a person that is not a legal immigrant, but a lot of businesses do it, and it's understandable. They can pay them lower rates, lower salaries, and all that stuff. So, and a lot of them do farm work, vineyard work. I live in the Napa Valley, so we have a lot of vineyards up north, above us, in the valley, in the Napa Valley, and they hire immigrants, but a lot of the immigrants are legal immigrants. So it's a shit show. It is completely a shit show, and I hope that I don't want to see families ripped apart, but the parents have to take responsibility for putting their kids in that situation too, and that's where I am.
So that'll of course be a priority. So I'm looking at a lot of different data sets to figure out where and when and how we're going to do this.
So how many days after Trump is sworn in before this effort to carry out the mass deportations begins? I know you said it starts on day one, but after how many days will we actually start to see that happening?
Day one. Day one will be ICE officers across the country will be out on the streets. Right out of the gate, President has made it clear, and I've made it clear, the priority right out of the gate is public safety threats and national security threats. And there's plenty of them to find, right? I looked at the data under the Biden administration. The deportation of criminal aliens have decreased 74%. So we have all those folks that the Biden administration failed to deport, plus you got this over 10 million encounters on the southern border that they came across. We got a lot of them to look for too. So the public safety threats are plenty, and it's going to keep us busy.
ICE has about 6,000 deportation officers nationwide. Tell me if that number is different than the numbers that I looked into. How many more deportation officers do you believe that you would need for what you want to carry out here?
Look, the bottom line is the more I got, the more I can do. So it's just over 6,000 ERO officers. Well, let's remember you got over 8,000 HSI officers who are also ICE officers who also have Title VIII authority, immigration authority. We're looking for help from other agencies. We're looking for help, and I've been clear on this. I'd like to see DOD assist us. DOD has assisted just about every presidential administration. So DOD could be a force multiplier. The men and women of ICE that carry a badge and gun that are doing administrative duties like processing and transportation and infrastructure building, if we can get DOD to help us, that frees those badge and guns up to get to the street to arrest the bad guys. So it all depends what I have available day one, and we're working on that now.
And will you ask the military for planes to help with those flights as well?
Absolutely. I'll ask them for help in transportation on ground and in the air. They have a lot of planes, and I think this is, I think what's happened on our southern border in the last 4 years is the biggest national security vulnerability this country's seen. Even the FBI director agrees with that. So I think DOD has a perfect role in protecting national security. Now, they're not going to be out arresting people, but they can be a force multiplier in doing things that we need them to do that doesn't require a badge and a gun.
Okay, you say they won't be out arresting people. That's an important point. On this effort overall, in terms of what you believe you need, and you're obviously deeply familiar with how this works and what's ahead of you, you had previously said about $86 billion was the minimum this project will cost. Do you have a better estimate now as you've been developing your plan?
I never said 86 billion. That was a CNN reporter that said 86 billion. I don't know what that number is right now. Again, we're working on the plan. Again, depends on how many resources I have and what the cost is going to be. But I'll say this. 86 billion. I mean, what price you put on the young women that have been murdered and raped in this country? What price you put on, the lives of all these little girls that, there's numerous cases. What price you put on national security? Because we know a record number of people on terrorist watch that's been called on the southern border. We also know there's over 2.2 million gotaways. How many of them came from countries sponsoring terror? What price you put on the thousands of angel moms and dads who their children were buried by their parents because their children were killed by someone that's not supposed to be here? There's a lot of cost factor. But let me say this. This will be an expensive operation, but in the long run, it would be a huge tax savings on the American people, because right now they're spending billions of dollars on free airline tickets, free hotel rooms, free medical care. Not talking about our education system, our trauma and hospitals, and
sir,
that's in perpetuity. And that's in perpetuity.
Tom Homan, former acting ICE director and a staunch advocate for robust immigration enforcement, doesn't mince words when describing the U.S.-Mexico border as the biggest national security vulnerability the nation faces today. He highlights the alarming number of individuals on terrorist watch lists apprehended at the border, emphasizing the catastrophic risks of leaving these vulnerabilities unchecked. But the threats don't stop there. Holman draws a direct line between lax border policies and the deadly flood of fentanyl poisoning American communities, the horror of human trafficking, and the potential infiltration of foreign adversaries. For Holman, securing the border isn't just a political talking point, it's a matter of national survival. In sharp contrast to what he sees as the failures of the Biden administration, Holman outlines an aggressive, meticulously planned strategy for mass deportations to commence immediately under a Trump presidency. His priority targets include over 700,000 undocumented individuals with criminal convictions, violent gang members like MS-13, and other high-risk groups. To achieve this, Holman proposes a nationwide multi-agency effort involving ICE, local law enforcement, and even the Department of Defense to assist with logistical support. His plan stands in stark opposition to the Biden administration's policies, which he claims have incentivized illegal immigration by reducing deportations by 74% and rewarding violations of U.S. law. For Holman, the choice is clear: enforce the law or continue down what he views as a path of chaos and lawlessness.
You just talked about who you are going to be targeting initially when you take office. You talked about people who are a public safety threat or a national security threat. And you said that everyone, though, is on the table if they are here in the country illegally. As you know, there's a lot of mixed status households in the United States. Do you plan to take both parents into custody if there are minor children in the house?
If you're in the country illegally and you got order of deportation, we're going to arrest you, we're going to detain you, we're going to remove you. If they have a U.S. citizen child, if they chose after they come to the country illegally and chose after been ordered removed to have a U.S. citizen child, and think, okay, the court order doesn't mean anything anymore, the removal order doesn't mean anything anymore, then what kind of message we send into the whole world? Go ahead and cross the border illegally, which is a crime, ignore a judge's order of deportation, but have a baby, and you're fine. If we do that, then shut down the immigration court because the orders don't mean anything anymore, and take the border patrol off the border. We can't send a message to the whole world that you can violate laws of this country and not leave as required by judge and have a U.S. citizen child. You're okay. That child can stay. They can stay with a relative. They can stay with the other parent, or they can take them with them. We don't deport U.S. citizens, but they put themselves in the position. We didn't.
Would the kids go, if both parents, though, are deported, would you put the children in foster care if there's not a relative? Child Protective Services, what does that look like?
Well, that's up to the parent. I call that parenting 101. It's up to the parent what they want to do. That's their child. But the bottom line is having a child in this country does not make you immune from our laws. If that's the message we send to the rest of the world, you're never going to solve the best work courses.
What would you be asking ICE agents to do in that scenario?
To arrest and deport people who are ordered to remove by a federal judge. That's what they're going to do. The parents can make the decision on their child. That's their decision.
So when you argued recently about, when you were asked about family separation, you said families can be deported together. That's how you would avoid that. I mean, you're saying that U.S. citizen, that U.S.-born child would have the choice to either go with their parents or to stay here in the United States without their parents.
That's the decision of the parents. And again, we can't send a message to the whole world that you can circumvent our laws by simply having a U.S. citizen child when you know you're here illegally. They made that decision. They put their families in that position, not us. We're going to enforce the laws enacted by Congress and signed by a president. If people don't like the laws, they can certainly have the laws changed by Congress. What we're going to do what the American people want us to do, enforce the laws enacted by Congress and what Congress sends us to do.
And obviously, this could be a reality that you are facing in just a few weeks or a few months from now. The other question that I've heard so much about this is the massive impact that these large removals could have on the construction or agriculture or hospitality industry. Is that
don't break the law?
Keeping in mind as you're making these plans?
Yeah, that'd be part of the privatization, but let's remember it's illegal to hire an illegal alien and employ illegal alien because there are a number of reasons. Undercuts wages. People hire an illegal alien for a couple of reasons. Number one, they can work them harder, pay them less, and undercut their competition who has U.S. citizen employees. It's against the law to hire an illegal alien, and we'll be enforcing that law too because workplace enforcement is coming back. Where do I find most victims of trafficking, sex trafficking, and forced labor? At work sites. And this administration stopped that. So if we're serious about human trafficking, both forced labor and forced sex trafficking, that's where we find the victims. That's where we save the victims. So worksite enforcement is coming back in a big way.
Yeah, the worksite raid. Of course, I mean, you've seen in areas like Wisconsin, dairy farms have a lot of undocumented immigrants on their property who are working there. So that was a big question for them. The other question I had for you is that the president-elect said recently that he believes still, not a new position for him, but he believes that birthright citizenship must end. Obviously, that is no easy feat given it is enshrined in the Constitution. But will he or anyone in his orbit direct immigration officials to stop giving out documents like passports or Social Security cards to babies who are born on U.S. soil, to parents who aren't documented?
Look, I think that's up to the courts. I think it needs to be held by the Supreme Court. I kind of disagree with you. I don't think it's enshrined in the Constitution at all, not the way I read it. But then again, I'm not a constitutional scholar. We'll let the courts decide that on the birthright citizenship. I'll say this. It's a major driver, a major magnet for illegal immigration. And under this administration, you got a record number of illegal aliens that die crossing the border. You got a record number of Americans dying from fentanyl coming across that border. You got a 600% increase in sex trafficking. So we got to stop these magnets. We got to stop rewarding illegal behavior because that's exactly what we're doing.
Tom Homan tackles one of the most emotionally charged aspects of immigration enforcement, the fate of mixed-status households. While acknowledging the humanitarian concerns tied to family separation, Homan stands firm in his belief that having a U.S.-born child should not grant undocumented parents immunity from deportation. He frames this stance as a matter of upholding the rule of law, asserting that parents facing removal must decide whether to take their children with them, leave them with relatives, or place them in foster care. For Holman, the responsibility lies squarely with those who knowingly violated immigration laws, not with the government enforcing them. While critics decry this approach as harsh, he argues that failing to act sends a dangerous message to the world, that breaking U.S. laws can be excused by having a child on American soil.
I do have a question on what this looks like, because one thing I've heard you say repeatedly is mass deportations doesn't mean tanks going down streets or huge sweeping raids. I think of what a lot of people might have in mind. You said the idea of building concentration camps is, quote, ridiculous. We have heard other people talk about large staging facilities, Stephen Miller, for example, who you'll be working with. On this and what this looks like when it's carried out, do you have any red lines of where you do not want to go to carry out the pledge to deport mass amounts of people?
Look, this operation, me and Steve Miller, there's no daylight between me and Steve Miller. He was the architect of some of the most significant, successful border policies in the history of this nation. President Trump had unprecedented success during his first administration. But look, we're going to build detention facilities because, again, this is a massive deportation operation. Let me explain why it's a massive deportation operation. Millions of people enter.
You have millions of people that enter our country illegally, and then
this country legally, claiming asylum. Secretary Mayorkas has said under oath numerous times, for those who don't qualify for asylum, they'd be immediately moved. Of course, he didn't do it, so we're going to do it. But people need to understand, the people come to the border claim asylum, based on immigration court data over the last decade, 9 out of 10, nearly 9 out of 10 people claim asylum will get an order removal. So when they lose that case, we'll give them the due process. They can make an asylum claim. We'll take them to a judge. But when a judge says they're leaving, they have to leave, because we don't, like I said, then what the hell are we doing? Just shut down immigration court doesn't mean anything more, and take the border patrol off the border because there's no consequences. We're going to enforce the law, and to do that, we're going to have teams out throughout the country arresting these targets. We got to build detention facilities to hold these people, so we're going to remove them. But there will be a well-targeted enforcement operation.
Well-targeted enforcement operation. And you said that starts on day one that Trump takes office. I do want to just revisit, though, if you want to carry out this mass deportation and you want to start it on day one, just about a little over a month from now, but you don't have a target number in mind.
Oh my God.
How does that, can you explain how that works to me?
The target number is arresting as many people as we can possibly arrest with the resources I have. So, for instance, we already discussed, we had over 700,000 illegal aliens in this country with a criminal conviction. They're priority one. These criminal gangs like Tren de Agua and MS-13, they're a priority. National security threats, they're a priority. So the goal is for ICE officers and other agencies who's going to assist them to arrest as many targeted priority aliens as possible. Here's the problem, though. In sanctuary cities, we can't arrest a criminal in jail because they won't let us in the jail. So that forces us to go to the neighborhood, which means instead of one agent arresting a bad guy in the jail, we got to send a whole team to the neighborhood. And what happens there? We're going to find others that are non-priority criminals. But guess what? They're going to be arrested too, because immigration officers aren't going to be told to walk away from somebody here illegally like this Biden administration has done. So sanctuary cities are going to get exactly what they don't want. You don't want to arrest a bad guy in the safety and security of the jail. Okay, put ICE officers at great risk to go in the community to arrest this person who has access to weapons, and they're going to end up arresting more collateral arrests because they have forces in the community.
That 700,000 number, are you confident that you'll be able to deport all of those people?
That's my goal.
The mainstream media, led by outlets like CNN, has been relentless in its criticism of family separation policies, but their selective outrage exposes a glaring double standard. While Tom Homan takes on the near impossible task of addressing the human trafficking epidemic, the hundreds of thousands of missing children, and the unchecked criminal activities flourishing at the border, media outlets seem fixated on vilifying enforcement measures rather than exposing the root causes of these crises. Homan's passionate commitment to border security stands in sharp contrast to what he and his supporters describe as the Biden administration's catastrophic failures, which have only exacerbated these humanitarian tragedies. For Homan, the focus should be on the lives endangered by weak policies, not the political theater the media perpetuates. At its core, the immigration debate is a clash over national identity, security, and the nation's humanitarian obligation. Homan and his supporters argue that strict enforcement isn't just a legal duty but a moral imperative to protect American citizens from the chaos of uncontrolled migration. They see it as a necessary stand against an international system that often exploits U.S. leniency.
Yeah, it
Critics,
does.
however, challenge this hardline approach, arguing it prioritizes punitive measures over compassion and does little to address the underlying drivers of migration, such as poverty, violence, and political instability in migrants' home countries. This divide underscores the complexity of the
Oh, it
issue,
totally does.
a balancing act between safeguarding a nation's borders and recognizing its moral and international responsibility.
True.
What do you think of today's video?
Oh, I think it was a fucking legend video, dude. Thank you for showing us that, and I will talk to you guys in the next video.